Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you taking some time on your Saturday morning to learn more about the scholarship process. My name is Sean. I'm an education funding specialist here with Granite Advance. I work with students in all aspects of financial aid, right? I am joined with Hillary. Hillary is a member of New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. She will be helping me throughout this presentation, and we'll each be able at the end to talk about our respective scholarships and all the details surrounding those. Okay. For those who might not know about Granite Advance, we are a free service to New Hampshire students and families. We help with the all aspects of your educational journey, right? Whether you're a first-time college student, returning college student, adult ed student, we are here to help you and your family through this process. We are based in Concord, New Hampshire. We do offer virtual appointments, in person, um, as well as in person, right, in our Concord office. Right now, we're in the time frame of reviewing financial aid offers. We'll talk about the timeline in a second, but we offer all of these different appointments, right? You want a little help with figuring out how to cover any remaining costs. You have 5 different financial aid offers in front of you. They all look a little bit different. Let us help you kind of understand that, right? And maybe that makes the difference of which school you attend, right? When we keep that financial piece as part of the conversation. So if you want some help, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll pop my email in the chat at the end of this presentation. So to get into the meat of the presentation, right? Where are we in the beginning of this process? So you've applied to your colleges, you're at the point of being accepted to those schools, starting to get those financial aid offers, right? Hopefully you did these 2 forms, right? If you didn't, by all means, go out and do them. The FAFSA you can do at any point in time throughout the academic year. Reason why it's really important for you to complete these financial aid forms if you haven't, even if you did, right? As a refresher, schools use these 2 forms to determine a student's financial aid eligibility, right? And by completing these financial aid forms, it allows you to potentially be eligible for those outside scholarships as well. A lot of outside companies will require information from the FAFSA form as part of their application process. So if the FAFSA form, right, that free application for federal student aid, what that form is going to create is your student aid index. That is what, I know New Hampshire Charitable requires that. We require that. Others across the United States will require that, whether it's a local or national search. Okay, not all, but some. And then the CSS profile. CSS profile is for specific schools. So if you didn't have to complete that, that's totally okay, totally normal. But the CSS profile is usually asked of about around 300 schools. And again, this is creating a profile of that student's financial need. When you start looking at that financial aid offer, right, and you're coming down to, okay, what is that bottom line? You're looking at these types of things, right? We're looking at that gift aid. That gift aid on that financial aid offer is based on the applicant, right? It's if you are eligible for a merit scholarship, you get that up front with that acceptance letter, right? Hey, Sean, you've been accepted to UNH with a $4,000 merit scholarship. That is mine to keep as long as I maintain a specific GPA in order to receive that. That can also be, excuse me, that can also be athletically, right? You're an athlete, you're looking at a Division 1 or 2 school, you receive an athletic scholarship. That is on you to maintain that athletic ability so that you can receive that each year that you're in school. Then you have the need-based. That need-based aid is going to be based on those financial aid forms that you complete, right? You complete those forms, you can either receive need-based grants from the federal government or you can receive them from the institution itself. Okay, the Pell Grant is a federal grant that you could be eligible for. You could be eligible for aid, right? When they review that student aid index, that CSS profile, They would then determine any institutional need-based aid that you're eligible to receive, right? Really important in terms of financial aid and the scholarship process. Deadlines are important. You're going to want to make sure you're hitting those deadlines so that you're getting the most financial aid possible, right? If you potentially did that FAFSA a little bit late, that FAFSA is going to open up October 1st for the next academic year. So the earlier you do it, the more aid you could potentially be eligible for. The right side of this is the self-help aid, right? All students, if you're a first-time college-going student, right, you're eligible for a federal student loan. Subsidized, meaning it's not accruing interest while the student is in school. Unsubsidized is accruing that interest while that student's in school, right? We're trying to get these scholarships, which we'll jump into next, to help offset any out-of-pocket costs or loan amounts that you would potentially have to take out to help fund your education, okay? Then the last thing you see here is that work study. So work study is an allocation, so you may see it on your financial aid offer, but keep in mind that is not something that's going to come off of that final cost, right? So if you have a school that costs $10,000, you receive a $5,000 scholarship, your balance is $5,000, you receive $2,000 in federal work study, your balance to that school is still $5,000, right? That work study is a chance for the student to work on campus, right? Whether that's if you visited colleges, right? Admission has a lot of federal work study students. They're probably giving you the tour of campus. Athletics, the library, research. There are a lot of different departments that offer it. So it is something to take advantage of if you were offered it. Okay, so sitting back now, right, we're saying, okay, we have our financial aid offer. We know what our bottom line is, our cost is. Let's try to offset that with some scholarships. So, Hillary, can you talk pretty quickly, right, about simply what a scholarship is, an outside scholarship is?
Sure. An outside scholarship is gift money, or it's money you do not have to pay back. It's not a loan that you would apply for to an organization set up to do that, like the Charitable Foundation. There are some small private scholarship offering foundations and organizations. Sometimes businesses offer scholarships, whether maybe your parent works somewhere that has a scholarship, or like Dunkin' Donuts has a scholarship. They used to anyway. Open to both employees of Dunkin' Donuts and people who just like donuts. And it's a community service that they provided, the $1,000 scholarships for residents in New Hampshire. Scholarships do not need to be repaid. They're not loans. So that's the basic of what it is. It's money for college. And depending on what the restrictions are on any particular scholarship, it could just be, here is money to help you cover whatever cost you need for college. You can, it can go for books, it can go for tuition, room and board. Some of them do have restrictions and say this is a scholarship strictly for tuition. So you would have to pay attention to what they intend the scholarship to cover. So they do not need to be repaid. So a thank you note is nice, but you applied, you were given the scholarship. That's all you need to do. Are they renewable for future years? That is dependent on the program. Some of them are renewable in that you just submit your grades and say, yes, I'm still in school, and you will get the next installment. Some of them are, as long as you meet the requirements, some of them you have to reapply for. So you have to put in another application, but you're eligible to reapply as long as you are in school. There are some that are strictly for high school seniors. There are also some that are strictly for upperclassmen. So once you are a sophomore or a junior, you would be eligible to apply for those funds. And there generally are requirements to keep a renewable scholarship. Baseline, you're still in school, you're hanging in there, your grades are okay. And that's all we need. Some of them are that if you required to live, say, in Merrimack County and your family moves to Sullivan County, you would not be eligible for that award anymore. So you would want to read the requirements for what your award is. If you've got a scholarship because you're a biology major and then you switch to chemistry, you might not be eligible for your biology scholarship anymore. So we try not to be tricky about it. But that would be why you might be eligible for something else. If you're not eligible for the biology scholarship, you should apply for the chemistry one now that you're a chemistry major. But you should ask if you can apply throughout your college career. And often the answer is yes.
Great. You know, when it comes to the scholarship search, I think anyone who works with students in the financial aid field would say you can start a scholarship search very early. And the earlier you do, the better. It gives you more time to apply, right? Or to prepare and plan. You know, even if you are starting to look now, that's okay. A lot of them are going to be open. Some will open in, you know, April. Maybe there's school specific ones that open a little bit later, but the earlier the better. You know, I'm a big advocate of staying as organized as possible. So even if you're going out and saying, okay, New Hampshire Charitable, right? You're doing this now. Okay, New Hampshire Charitable, it's open. I can go out and apply to it. Granite Advance, it is open. I can go out and apply to that. Okay, Red Sox Foundation, that will open soon, right? I'll have all of my requirements ready so that when it does open, I am just applying to that and have everything already available to me. I think it makes the process a little bit more, it makes it less stressful. You know, scholarships can be a very daunting process, and yeah, they are a little bit of work, but there are ways to manage that time so that you are putting your best foot forward and putting your best work towards each scholarship application. And we'll get into some tips and tricks, and I know Hillary will mention a couple of things, but Hillary, are scholarships worth the time?
Yes, they are. Well, okay, if you have to apply for a scholarship and write 90 pages, that's probably not worth your time. But if you can, if it requires a quick essay and filling out a form and you could get $500 and it takes you an hour, you just earned $500 for that hour's worth of time. So, scholarship applications should be free, and a lot of the information is going to be similar to what you already put in your college essays and your college applications. So as Sean was saying, if you have started early, let's say you started your junior year, you started last fall, and you've winnowed out all the things you're not eligible for, that's something you don't have to do right now. You have your list of places that you can apply to that you are eligible for, and you can just go in and spend an afternoon doing your applications, keeping track of things. And so they are worth the time, even when they're very competitive, because I always tell students, if you don't apply, I can't give you any funding. If you do apply, even if we have a very competitive program and we can only fund 35 to 40% of our students, you don't know where you are on that range unless you apply. So we do encourage people to apply.
Right. And then, you know, one of the biggest things that I probably talk about, you probably talk about and review, you know, throughout your scholarship process is could, you know, if students are putting in all of this work and doing all of these essays and doing all of these applications, could these outside scholarships affect a student's financial aid offer?
Yes, they can. Our scholarship is what we call last dollar. So we take your whole financial aid package once you're a finalist, and we look at what you are getting. And this happens less often to students who have a very low SAI. So we can't give you more money than college costs and the resources that you have. So for basic math, if college costs $20,000 and your family has an SAI of $5,000, and the school gives you $15,000, I can't give you any more because you have reached between your SAI and what the college has given you. I can't add to that without going over the total cost. If I did give you something, they would take away some of your college scholarship and they'd give it to somebody else. So the wealth is being spread around. So it depends on, we try not to do that because then we could give our scholarship to a student who didn't get as good of a financial aid package. But we can't go over the cost of college. So if I'm doing that math again, the college cost is 20,000, your SAI is 5,000, which is basically what the school expects the family to contribute. Then the college gives you 10,000. You still have $5,000 that you need to come up with. And if that's not a loan, it could come from a scholarship and it will not affect your aid package.
To take this one step further, right? If you are unsure of how much you could potentially fit or what a school scholarship process is, we do recommend just reach out to the school, right? Reach out to the financial aid office and ask what their policy is on outside scholarships. They should be upfront with you and they should be able to tell you. Yep.
It should actually be on their website. They have to be transparent about this. Sometimes it's confusing. There are still a few colleges that will reduce your grant and your loan equally versus just allowing you to replace a loan with an outside scholarship. The most common thing is if you have an outside loan, a federal loan, or a work study component, you can use your scholarship to replace that. So you don't have to go get that work study job. You can then spend that time studying. However, there are still a very small number of schools that will reduce your grant and your loan at the same time. So definitely ask what the policy is. Ask how much outside award can I accept without it affecting my aid package.
So when we're looking at scholarships, right, and we'll talk about it on the next slide, national versus local, but just an understanding of there is a lot of scholarship money out there available to you as a student, right? You can look local, you can look national. It can be based on a lot of things. It can be based on that GPA. It can be based on that student aid index, right? That financial need component. It can be based on who you are. The athletics that you participate in, right? Are you a soccer player? Go to your soccer association. Maybe Lions Club for basketball has an option for you for a scholarship. Maybe it's degree focused, right? Johnson and Johnson have a lot of really great ones for medical field students, right? Nursing, pre-med, things like that. Extracurriculars, what are you doing on your own time, right? Are you out in your community? Are you in a leadership position? Are you volunteering in your community, right? These types of activities, there are going to be scholarships out there that are focused on leadership, that are focused on volunteer experience. And we want to make sure that you're using that, right? Involvement in organizations, right? I kind of mentioned it. Maybe you're part of the Rotary Club. Maybe you're part of the Kiwanis Club in your hometown, right? These types of things will bring about scholarships. The thing that I always say to students is there is no harm in asking, because the worst they're going to say is, no, we don't offer that. Right? There's nothing worse that's going to happen. So don't be afraid to ask. Like Hillary mentioned, right? Dunkin' Donuts has one. I've seen ones from Market Basket, McDonald's. If you have a part-time job, making sure that we're asking these types of questions. Hillary, when you work with students, right, and outside of, if they say, hey, what other options do I have outside of New Hampshire Charitable? Are you more, where should they start, I guess? Should they start national? Should they start local? What's the best piece of advice you could give them?
I always tell students to start by making a trip to your guidance office at school, because that is where any school-specific funds and scholarships will be held, that the school will know about them. The foundation has some that are specific to high school, so we just tell the school, this is what it's for, here's how much money you have. So they will usually have a long list of local scholarships. That's the easiest thing to do. It's probably all in one place. However, I would also suggest doing look for your college, because they may have specific funds that you should be applying for. And then FastWeb is an excellent search, as is Scholarship America. The three that Sean has listed here are all legit searches. And there's plenty of things out there that will try to suck you in, that are, if you have to pay for it, don't do it. These should all be free. They're just a listing of scholarships. And I will say sometimes FastWeb is a little out of date. Once in a while you'll get a specific scholarship that shows up, and it might be out of date, so you'd have to go to that website. But these three sites are very good places to look.
And Hillary brings up a really great point about going to the website. If you're ever unsure, right, about a scholarship, even if you're using any of these searches, the FastWeb, Scholarship America, Going Merry, there's a bunch of different ones out there. Don't hesitate to copy the name of the scholarship and do a little Google search on it yourself, right? They may have more updated information on it. And it makes you understand if it's, if they're on these sites, they're going to be legit, but maybe you would feel much better applying through the website itself, right? So do that little Google search, do a little bit more research into it. Though one thing I would say about scholarship search engines is that you're going to get a lot of emails, right? That you are basically creating a profile of yourself, right? Sean, my GPA, what I do, what my extracurriculars are, what my GPA is, what my major is. And if it matches me in any sort of way, it's going to say, hey, Sean, I have a scholarship for you, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence when you get all of those emails too, to review those. But just understand that there's going to be a lot of emails. Some people will say, well, there's so many emails, it's definitely spam. It's not, right? You want to make sure that you are taking a little bit deeper dive into it. Because again, there's so much scholarship money out there that they're trying to help give you everything you could potentially be eligible for. The
The
other
other thing
thing,
I just want to
go ahead.
say is that the one other reasons to check the actual site of the scholarship, not just relying on the information on the search boards, is that deadlines change every year. And we often get people saying, oh, well, it said your deadline was April 14th. I said, well, that was April 14th, 2022. So we change our deadline every year. It is in April. It is around the middle of the month, but definitely, especially if you're looking at something and it has an old deadline, make sure you check the actual scholarship for the current deadline.
That's a great point. The
They
other
can't
one,
always keep up.
the other one I like to mention is dollars. Is it dollars for scholars or dollars
Dollars for scholars. Yep.
It's a really good one, and a lot of times that is, I've worked with people at the Auburn Library. I've worked with people at Milford High School, right? Those are really good ones as well, for you to look into. Okay. So listed here is what you could potentially be asked for on a college application, right? Your student aid index, that is the financial need component, right? It's a lot of times they'll ask for a screenshot of it, whether it be from the email, from your FAFSA submission summary. You should have access to that at studentaid.gov. If you log into the student's account, students FSA, or log in with the student's FSA ID, go to their activity, you'll see the FAFSA submission summary out there. Essays are going to be different depending on the scholarship, right? You may have to write a 500-word one for one, a 300-word scholarship or essay for another. These, you want to make sure that they are mirroring the question that is asked, right? We'll talk about, Hillary has a great tip when it comes to essays, and we'll talk about that in a second. GPA, right? A lot of times, high school transcripts, college transcripts, probably most of the time they're going to be asked for, either for a grade specific scholarship, right? If it's focused on academics, or if there's a minimum requirement that a student must maintain in order to receive that scholarship. Everything you're involved in, right? Clubs, organizations, activities, work experience, list everything you do. This is the perfect time. And again, we'll talk about this in a second, but this is a great time to talk about you and what you can bring to the table, what you've been doing in your community, what you've been doing at your school. Don't shy away from that. That is being someone who reviews a lot of scholarship applications. It's wonderful to see all of the work that these students are doing and putting it in their communities. And then letters of recommendation. Do you need one? Some do require them, some don't. Hillary, twofold question here, right? Does New Hampshire Charitable require all of these?
Yes, we need some of everything. You do not have to write the world's best novel in your essay. You have to tell us what you're doing. You can use your college essay if you wrote a really good one and you're proud of that, and it does explain why you want to, what you're doing. That's what we need. We do not require official transcripts. We can have, as Sean said, it can be a screenshot of something. We just need to confirm that the number you write as your GPA matches what you took in school, and we will read it and see what classes you took. We like to take into account the whole thing. So even if you don't have an awesome GPA, if we read that transcript and see that's because you had a really terrible term, and I don't know why you had a bad term, but that can drop your GPA. Doesn't mean you're a bad student, means you had a bad term. So we read the whole thing. So it's more than just your GPA. We only ask for one transcript. So if you're a high school senior, we ask for that. Once you're into college, we want your college transcript. So it's an either or there. clubs, activities, work experience, the way we have this on our application is, what do you spend your time doing when you are not in school? Because we recognize that some students work a lot and they might not have time to participate in lots of clubs and sports. Some students are very active in clubs and sports and they don't have as much work experience. Some students have to help take care of their families. So that's work. If you go home after school and you're babysitting for your younger siblings, put that down. We require one letter of recommendation. We would prefer it does not come from your parent. We have gotten those before. We have space on our application for you to put in 3 names, because sometimes people can't fulfill your request for whatever reason. Either they forget, or they're really busy, or they say, "Oh, I can't recommend this student," whatever reason. So put in more than one, just in case the one person can't do it. We will read all 3 of them, but we only require one.
And then the second part of this, Hillary, is, I get the question sometimes. I got it yesterday when I was at Plymouth. Are scholarships only looking at financial need?
No, some of them are merit scholarships. And it depends on what the establisher of the fund wanted to support. So some of them absolutely say to support students with financial need and these other requirements, like you live in Merrimack County or you're studying chemistry. Some of them are want to support the students with excellent academics, regardless of financial need. So that's, again, coming back to where you're read the criteria to know what you're applying for. If you are the valedictorian or top 10, go ahead and apply for those merit scholarships. Those will be very competitive. But if you are not a top student, that does not mean you're not eligible for a scholarship. In fact, that's why we call it student aid, because we provide aid for all kinds of students, not just the number 1 in the class.
And while Hillary's speaking specific to New Hampshire Charitable, it is the same across the board when it comes to scholarships, right? You can find some that are strictly based on merit. You can find some that are based on financial need, or, look more at your activities, your work experience, your extracurriculars, because it's focused on a leadership or a community service topic. For us, right, through Granite Advance, we look at all of these except for letter of recommendation. We do not ask for that. And same as Hillary mentioned, we look at if you are a high school senior applying, we look at that high school transcript. If you are a college student, we are looking at that college transcript. What I will say is ours, we look at the full candidate, right? We do have 4 different categories, but we are looking at, right, our academic excellence. Yes, we will focus a little bit more on that GPA, but we are looking at the full span of the candidate, what they're doing outside of the classroom, what they're doing inside the classroom, what that financial need is. We're looking at that full applicant, not just one of these categories. So don't let that shy you away from applying to those scholarships. Hillary, we did get a really good question. I'm going to throw it your way.
Okay.
And you can talk specific to New Hampshire Charitable for sure. What should we do if we've had a special situation since completing the FAFSA, and now the only parent listed is now unemployed?
Right. This happens a lot because the FAFSA often requires financial information from over a year ago, and a lot can change in a year with a family. So what we recommend a family do in that situation is, our application has an essay where you can have special circumstances, and just write a note that the FAFSA may not be accurate, that one parent became unemployed, somebody had an illness, somebody had to stop working, somebody won the lottery. That would be a good one, but that doesn't happen that often. However, you would also want to make sure you go to your college financial aid office. So you can let us know that your FAFSA number may change due to somebody having an employment change, but you absolutely want to go to your college and let them know that this has changed as well. Because we will take it into account when we're reading the application, but the college will be the one making the aid offer, and they will need that updated information for sure.
Right. And to take it one step further with Hillary, it's a great point. Anytime your financial situation changes in a negative way, you always want to have that conversation with the financial aid office. They want to help you for where you currently are in your in your financial situation. The what Hillary's kind of talking about is, right, life happens at crazy times, right? It's not like it's going to happen in the summer before school starts to where you can be prepared, right? Things happen at all different times. So having that relationship with financial aid to say, you know, this, we lost some income, this is going to change. Schools are going to then review that financial aid and your FAFSA information to see if you may be eligible for more, you know, potentially need-based grants, right? Or things like that to help you out financially as well. So that's a really great point. We also had another question come in saying, my student is currently a junior, I'm assuming in high school is my guess. Can I fill out a practice FAFSA so that I can have a feel for what to expect next year? So what you can do is out at studentaid.gov, you could potentially do a FAFSA form. You'd have to create the FSA ID, but it would be working off of the wrong tax year. So the FAFSA form, that if you are a high school senior right now going to college in the fall 25 is working off of the 2023 tax forms, right? So when you, as the parent of a junior, when your student starts in fall of 26, you're going to be using 2024 tax information. What I will say is that there is a tool on the website. It's called a student aid estimator. And while this isn't 100% accurate, right? Because obviously it's an estimator, you can go out and use that tool. You don't have to create the IDs yet. You can go out and essentially put in 2024 tax information to see what potentially that SAI could be, right? So that you have an understanding of, will I receive the Pell Grant? Will I receive work study? It will give you estimates at the end. But again, remember, it is an estimate. So we want to keep that in mind. But that is where you can go to do that. Studentaid.gov, Student Aid Estimator. It's one of the tools on a drop-down menu. Right. So one of the tips I'm going to bring up here, and I'm going to send it over to you, Hillary, because you said it in one of the previous ones we've done together, is can you talk a little bit about where we are with technology and things that students shouldn't use when they're writing their college essay?
The ChatGPT question.
Yes.
We read lots of essays, and in the last couple of years, my colleagues who don't work in student aid have been saying, well, what are you going to do about this? How are you going to know? And I just said, I'm pretty sure I will see it. I will know it when I see it. And what we recommend for students is that please use spell check, please use Grammarly, although it loves commas a little bit more than even I do. So use those tools, but please do not type scholarship essay, want to be an accountant, because that essay will read like a ChatGPT essay. It talks a lot about why being an accountant is a great career. It does not say anything about why you want to be an accountant. And that is the difference. So if you need a prompt, you need to get started, you can use those tools, but we can recognize ChatGPT essays. They are very easy to read, or not to read. When you read one, you're like, oh, ChatGPT. And they're much less personal. And I want to know why you want to be an accountant. I want to know why you need a scholarship, why college is important to you. And ChatGPT will not know that. So that's my tip for using that. Like, we love spell check. Grammarly is great. Use ChatGPT to help you write a good essay, because I want to read a good essay. I read a 600-word nonstop run-on sentence the other day, which I knew was not ChatGPT. Definitely from the heart, but maybe clean it up a little bit. So I would say that would be our recommendation. Do we penalize students for that? We're not going to throw your application out, but it won't put you in the best light. And we have students who apply for technical scholarships, and we recognize that their essays are going to be very different from someone who wants to be an English major and loves to write. That if the student talks to me about how much they love welding and they want to learn underwater welding, and they thought that was fascinating, and they tell me all about different kinds of welding rod, I learned something, and that's okay. That's the kind of essay I like to read. So don't worry about impressing me with your writing skills. tell me about you and what you're doing and why you want to go to college.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Tips, right? Want to make sure we're starting, right? Start now. Starting early is always good. I like a spreadsheet, right? Keep the names of the scholarships you're applying to, when that deadline was, when you may potentially hear, maybe a email of if you have any questions. If you haven't heard, you can reach back out, but stay as organized as possible. We got a question here, Hillary, asking how to help tips on how to organize the search for scholarships. There are so many different search engines showing the same scholarships, and it's easy to lose track. Any
Yeah.
tips on streamlining that process?
Well, I have to say, I love a good spreadsheet. I know they're not for everyone. Maybe you just make a list on a piece of paper, and when you're start with your first search, and you write down the names of the awards that you might be eligible for. You might want to write, as Sean said, you write down the deadline. Write down the criteria that they're looking for. Needs 2 essays, needs 1 letter of recommendation, needs a photograph. And you write that down, whether it's on a spreadsheet or your Post-it note. And then when you go to the next search site, it gives you the same ones. You can just skim over that and write down the new ones that it did not, that you didn't get on the first pass. So whatever organizational skill tips work for you, whether it's a spreadsheet or Post-it notes you can put on the wall, just a list. Probably telling your little brother is not the best way to go, but at least he knows that you did it. So one other person in the room knows what you talked about. So that would be my recommendation, that if there's a system that works for you, usually it involves writing it down somewhere so you can reference it later.
Right. And I wish there was there was like a button that we can push to say, okay, all
Already
scholarships.
saw that one.
Yeah, all scholarships like fall into a one search engine, but because these, there are so many, as you mentioned in the question, there are so many search engines, and I guess the good news is the search engine is doing its job, right? If you are seeing it on different sites, those that's hard to manage. It is kind of, as we've kind of mentioned, right? It's worth the time, but it is a little bit of a daunting process to make sure that we are getting all of the scholarships we're eligible for and actually pointing them out and making sure we're not duplicating or hitting every scholarship that's out there without losing track. I agree with Hillary. I'm a big fan of spreadsheets. It's a nice way to keep it organized, right? So that when you go through Scholarship America, you look at those scholarships. You go through FastWeb. If there's one you're like, oh, I don't think I have that, right? You can check your spreadsheet to kind of go through that. I always recommend a email specific to those scholarship search engines, right? If you're looking at those national searches, Hillary and one of her colleagues made a great point last time that maybe local scholarships where you're going to hear from them, your higher percentage chance of winning. Use your personal email, and then these search engines use one that everyone has access to, right? Mom can see it, dad can see it, student can see it, so that you all are on the same page when it comes to that national search. Because local ones may reach out with specific questions like Hillary mentioned, right? They ask for their financial aid offer. Emails could potentially come through them throughout the scholarship process. So you don't want those emails to get lost in the search process.
We also recommend that if you are given a high school email, like the ones that have SAU number, whatever, we don't recommend you use those because you'll lose access to that once you graduate from high school. And then we'll have to make a phone call, which we are happy to do, but we want to make sure that the award email reaches you. So if you have an SAU or a school email, please also make sure you create your own email for after high school and read it.
We also got a question in, should we apply for state scholarships in the state of the college we are attending?
That's a really good question. I think you need to find out if you are eligible. Because some of them may be absolutely, yes, of course you can apply. We do not allow people who live in another state but are going to Keene State College apply to our funds. We actually tell them, go back to your home state and apply to a fund from there. So
A lot of
again, it
times,
comes down to the criteria of that particular fund, but absolutely check it out because you may be eligible.
right. These we've kind of touched upon throughout the entire presentation, right? Make sure you're checking your spelling, your grammar, as Hillary mentioned, right? Use Grammarly. Make the essay specific to the scholarship, right? Hillary has mentioned this. If the essay that you wrote on your Common App or your college application meets the criteria of the question, by
Mhm.
all means use it, right?
That's
Maybe you
right.
had a supplemental essay that you had to write and it meets it,
Mhm.
write it. But if, they're asking for your leadership qualities, in your community and you submit your college essay that's the listing the reason you want to be a biology major and it talks about nothing that you've done in your community, you may want to
Mm.
rethink using that essay, right? You want to make sure you're really hitting that essay prompt so that you're giving yourself the best chance to potentially win that scholarship.
Read
Um,
the directions.
read the directions, right? And then a thank you note, right? Hillary mentioned it previously in a different slide, but I know, and she mentioned it, right? She loves to learn about welding and new things. I love to see what students are doing. I receive a lot of thank you notes for the Granite Advanced Scholarship, and it's heartwarming
Mhm.
because you learn how much this scholarship has helped that student obtain their educational goals, right? A lot of times, and Hillary, I'll let you speak to this, you have so many funds coming from so many directions.
Mhm.
Do your donors appreciate a good thank you note?
They do. Now, we do have a lot of funds that came from estates. There is no donor or family member left. So we will, if you write a great thank you note, we will pass it around. We had a really lovely one the other day that a student had submitted, and it was our staff meeting day. So I showed it to a couple of people who don't work in the scholarship program, and they were like, this is amazing. So we don't share your personal information, but if you write a thank you note, we do share it. And some of the donors really love to see the results of their funding. But for us, we do not require it. So it's nice if you do it, but you don't have to for us. And if you call us, we will look it up and see if there is a donor that is there. But mostly we want you to do well in school. That's why
Yeah,
we sent you the scholarship.
yeah.
That's
And
our
we
thanks.
and we do ask through Granite Advance, we do ask,
Mhm.
if you were to win a scholarship through us, we do follow up and say, hey, we want to um show New Hampshire what you're doing, right? And you don't
Mhm.
have to, it's not required. It is 100% um if you want to do it and want to submit it, but we want to celebrate you, right? Celebrate
Mhm.
what you're doing in your community. Celebrate the academic success that you're having. So we do follow up with that, but again, it is not required on our end at all.
We occasionally do that too. If we're writing a story about the scholarship program, we might contact a student and say, would you like to participate in the story? But it is always completely up to the student. The only thing we would ever publish is that a student got a scholarship. We would not put the dollar amount. Some funds like to have a little blurb in the newspaper to say that all the students from Alton got a scholarship, but we would not put the amounts that people received.
And again, we've touched on this a little bit throughout, but this application's about you, right? I think this is a really great point to go back to Hillary mentioning Chat GPT. We don't want to talk to a bot, right? We want to talk to you, the student. We want to hear from you and your accomplishments. Okay. Show them what you got, right? Be polite. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Both, I know in working with New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, they're very responsive, right? So being able to reach out and get questions, maybe a question is confusing. Don't hesitate to reach out to the scholarship
Mhm.
email committee, whoever is listed there, to ask the question, right? We want you putting your best foot forward. So if you have a clarifying question, they are there to help you through that process.
And we try to answer questions within 24 hours. So if you happen to get our student voicemail, please leave us a message. We'll call you back. If you write an email, we will respond. And we try to do it within 24 hours, but we aren't. The other day we were all together in a meeting and somebody was calling and we couldn't answer the phone. So just leave us a message and we will call back if we don't pick up.
Um, The next slide are going to be two New England specific. So we'll talk about New Hampshire scholarships in a second. But if you are or know anyone in a New England state, they can apply to these two scholarships. You can kind of see the requirements below. More requirements can be found at their websites. Again, I will send out this recording as well as the slide deck, so you'll have access to all of the QR codes, all of the buried links and whatnot, so you can have those to apply to these scholarships. Stephen, I don't believe the Red Sox Foundation scholarship is open yet. Stephen Phillips is definitely open, so you can go out. That is specific to a 4-year institution, but the other one is for a 2 or a 4-year. New Hampshire specific, we're going to talk about New Hampshire Charitable and Granite Advances Scholarship. So, Hillary, I left it kind of bland on the side, so give them all the information of New Hampshire Charitable.
Sure. So we have over 500 different scholarship funds that donors have placed with us, and approximately half of them are they're specific to a high school out in the community. So that's where you would go to your guidance office to see if there are any that you can apply for there. The other half are for what we call our discretionary scholarship programs, where it's an open application and anyone who lives in New Hampshire and is attending any kind of post-secondary education can apply. So we have a group of students. I'm assuming most of you folks are high school heading to college. So we call that program the Statewide Student Aid Program. And if you are attending a 4-year college, your deadline is April 11th, which is a Friday at 5 p.m. And that also means the letters of recommendation must be complete by then, because starting on Monday morning, we turn that around and it's been closed. We sort them out, we send them to the reviewers, and we start reviewing the 1,500 or so applications that we get. If you are doing another kind of program other than a 4-year college, like if you're going to a community college, you're going to the tech, you are doing a certificate program somewhere that's shorter than a degree program, you can apply at any time throughout the year up until December. So if you're unsure of your plans and then it's August and you decide, I would like to take some classes, you can still apply to us, because we recognize that you might change your mind. Maybe you decide to take the fall term off before you figure out what you're going to do. You can apply for a spring term if you're in a 2-year program. The 4-year program does have that strict deadline, and we operate on a year calendar. So we only do this once a year. The application is free. It should take you about half an hour to 45 minutes to complete it if you have all of your things ready to go. So we recommend you open it up and you look at it, write your essay in Word, and then copy and paste it in there. It does not have autosave. So if you log in and you write half your essay and then something happens and you walk away from your computer, it will time you out and you will lose your work. So make sure you hit save before you walk away from your computer. We have a lot of funds that have different criteria. And so there's a page that asks you to look down this long checklist and ask if you went to the Maud Trefethen School, and if you're of Lithuanian descent, and if you are studying chemistry, if you are a member of Naval Junior ROTC. These are all tied to funds that we have, and it helps the matching process. And once you've applied, all applications are reviewed by a person. We don't have an automatic cutoff that if your SAI is over this, we don't read your application, or if your GPA is below that, we don't read it. We read everything. As Sean said, we take the whole application into account. So we look at your grades, we look at your essays, we look at your letters of recommendation. What do you want to do? What's your family situation that you need some scholarship support? That reading and evaluation process takes us about 2 months, because last year we had about 1,500 applications, and reading every single one of them and evaluating them takes some time. From there, we match our finalists. So if you're a student that we want to fund, we find one of those funds that you're eligible for. And then we let you know that you are a finalist, at which point we need your financial aid package to make sure that we have right-sized the award. And our award sizes range from $250 to $5,000. We have some slightly larger ones, but we aim to have an average award size of between $4,000 and $5,000 per student. Some of our awards are renewable, in that you don't have to reapply, you just have to tell us you're still in school. But most of them are not. We don't have the full capacity to be able to offer that to most students, but you can reapply every year that you're in school. And especially if you got an award, you should reapply the second year, or third year and fourth year. And that is the QR code to get to our application. It is a single application, so it does not matter which fund you're not applying to a fund, you're applying to our program, and we figure out which fund it comes from. It could be one fund, it could be 5 that we pull together to make an award to.
Cool. Great option, right, to take advantage of, as Hillary
Mhm.
mentioned, every year, apply to it every
Right.
year.
Last year, we put out about $8 million to students in New Hampshire. And it is competitive. We cannot fund everybody. I wish we could. We could probably use about another $10 million, but don't have that right now. We're working on it. But as I said, we do get new funds and new donors come to us every year. So we do encourage people to apply.
Great. Headed over to our scholarship. So the Granted Advanced Scholarship is now open. It opened 2 days ago. Really exciting. We are giving away $750,000 this year. Anyone looking for a certificate, 2-year or a 4-year program can apply. We are a little bit different in that we have 4 different categories that a student can apply to, right? Academic excellence, leadership, community service, first gen, and then essentially life experience, right? You can apply to one, you can apply to all of them. The 2 that really have set requirements is academic excellence. We're looking for a 3.5 or higher. First generation is for those first gen students. Definition of first gen is on our website. That tends to be different depending on where you're looking. So any questions regarding that, you can always reach out to us as well. Awards range from $1,000 to $3,000. It's same thing as Hillary mentioned with the reviewing of financial aid offers. We'll review them, but we will not over award like Hillary mentioned. Our awards are a little bit less, so I'm hoping we don't run into that as much as Hillary may run into it when she reviews scholarships. If you're searching for a 4-year, if you are at a 4-year institution or will be studying at a 4-year institution, the deadline is May 7th, right? So it's open now until May 7th. It will close at 5 p.m. sharp. Last year we had it open till midnight, and that was a little crazy, but 5 p.m. So we make sure that all questions will be answered prior to the end of our scholarship. If you are searching for a trade school or you're attending a 2-year community college or 2-year school, your deadline is July 9th. So you have some additional time. Any questions you have can be directed at us at Granted Advanced. I can put my Hillary, if you don't mind popping your email into the chat just so that if people have questions, they can reach out. I will do the same. Any questions regarding our scholarship? Again, we look at the outside of those 2 little requirements, right? The GPA for academic excellence and first gen. We're looking at the whole candidate, the whole applicant. So apply to all of them, one of them, whichever, whatever you prefer. Okay. We did have a couple questions come in, Hillary, so I'm going to throw at least one your way.
Sure.
I will say if anyone else has any questions, right, as we go through the Q&A questions that are out there right now, by all means, throw them in the chat. Throw them in the chat, throw them in the Q&A. You know, we are here to answer any questions you may have. All right, Hillary, throw one your way. Can you define what the requirements mean when they say you must demonstrate need? We have a high SAI, but still have need.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hard question to answer because we see all levels of need. We have families who have a very high need on paper. The way they changed the FAFSA last year included small businesses. So if you have a business where I don't know, you're a logging company and you have several $100,000 worth of very large pieces of equipment that is critical to your business, the FAFSA might say you have a lot of assets, but you're like, but I don't have a lot of income. That is something that it's very hard for us to understand. We can only go by what the SAI number says. So that's where you need to go to your college and explain what your situation is. And you can have an explanation in your to the essay for us. And we do see a lot of families who have SAIs of negative numbers. And it's very hard to square everybody's personal level of need. So all I can say is we do the best we can, and we welcome an explanation in the application of what the situation is. And as Sean explained, because the numbers lag at least a year and sometimes two, we know that family situation can change a great deal. Sometimes a financial transaction that happened in that tax year can boost your SII to a number that is not really real. It was all on paper. Like maybe you transferred your retirement account to something else, and for that window of time, it appeared you were a multimillionaire, and you're really not. So there's all kinds of things that can happen. But need is one of those. And I would say if you have an SII, please go for the more merit-based awards, because you will definitely be considered for them. But explain the situation, and that's about the best we can say.
Yeah. You know, demonstrated need is hard because when it comes to awarding any need-based aid, every single college is different.
Mhm.
Every single scholarship company is probably going to be different. You know, a lot of times, I'm pretty sure when you look at Stephen Phillips Memorial Fund, they tell you the SAIs that they typically award. You know, so that you have a better understanding, so you don't have to put the time in to apply to that scholarship. Some that ask for demonstrated need, right? They will tell you, hey, we look at the whole applicant. Some will say, we're looking for those with an SAI under 20,000 or whatever the case may be. So, unfortunately, it's going to depend. There's not I wish I could give you a better answer than it depends. But typically that's what you see, just like you would see, you know, need-based aid being different at different institutions. And then the other question we did receive is, do letters of recommendation need to come directly from the school like the colleges require? Or should my son ask teachers for recommendations separate from the one sent directly through the Common App? You want to speak specific to New Hampshire Charitable?
Yes, for ours, it is embedded into the application. You will put in the name and email address of the person you're asking the letter from. The site will send that person a secure link where they can either upload an existing letter, copy and paste something they write something directly into the form, and it gets fed back directly into the application. So they can use the same letter, but it does not come directly from the school. The student submits.
So it could be the
to that
same
person. So,
person, but they have to
yes.
do it through the system itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct. And we usually recommend that people tell that person that, hey, I've asked the site to send you an email. Can you please fill it out for me? Let them know what the deadline is, and please give them enough time to do it. It breaks my heart when somebody starts their application at 3:30 on the day of the deadline, and their recommender doesn't get the link in time and can't do it. So their application is not accepted because they don't have a letter of recommendation. And please give them at least a week to submit it, and let them know so that they can look for the email, because it might come through a spam filter or something like that. So let them know, hey, it's going to come in, and please fill it out by this date.
Yeah. But and just to take it kind of a step further, you don't have a requirement of it has to be a teacher or a guidance counselor.
Nope,
Like if
it does
they're
not.
putting leadership responsibilities as a captain to their soccer team, they could ask their soccer coach.
That's right. And if you work, you can ask your employer. We just ask it not be your relatives.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to be the same outside of New Hampshire Charitable too, right? Typically they're going to want you to put someone who's going to recommend you the best. So if it is the school counselor, if it is a different teacher, by all means use who works. It doesn't have to be the same as the one through your college. It's not like the two are talking, right? The Common App and scholarship application. So be open to using different ones if you want, if your son wants. And then this one coming in, can a student still work on campus if they do not get a work study offer as part of their financial aid package? So I'll answer
That's for
this
you, Sean.
one.
I don't know.
Yep. I'll answer that one. So the answer is They could, right? Yes, it's an option. So those students that are eligible for federal work study can definitely get a job on campus. But a lot of schools, most schools, have what's called institutional work study. And that allows them to do the same thing as a federal work study job. Just the institution is the one paying it, right? So I worked at a college previous to this and when I was working in admission, we had some that were federal work study workers and then some that were institutional work study workers. Best example there is I had a couple of international students, right? Some hockey guys that were admission staff for us. They don't qualify for federal work study, so they were eligible to do institutional work study. It's probably going to be limited, and certain departments may or may not have it. So what I would encourage is when the student gets to campus, a lot of times they have some type of like fair or connections activity to where it shows all the jobs that they could potentially be eligible for. When walking around seeing those on-campus jobs, you just want to ask if any of them have any institutional, right? Because your student doesn't qualify for federal work study. But there are options out there. Any other questions? What I will say is I do appreciate you all taking some time out of your Saturday morning to learn more about the scholarship process. Happy to answer any questions that come up after this, right? You're in the middle of it. You have a question about our scholarship, New Hampshire Charitables, right? Reach out to us, reach out to the emails provided in the chat. But again, thank you for attending. We'll stay on for a few more minutes, but go enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you all very much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Okay,
Cool. Let me stop the
guess we
recording.
got a few people still on here, but.
Yeah.